I'm on with Nancy Houston, a great friend, and one of the world's leading authorities on how to deal with stress and crisis. I mean, you actually work with, as a psychologist, key people who deal with huge amounts of stress. So give me a little bit of your background, and then I'm going to ask you some questions of how in the world am I going to make it, through this
Mm,
whole thing.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Paul. Just a little bit about me. Gosh, I have been a licensed professional therapist for about the last 20 years.
Wow.
Also been on staff at a mega church as a pastor, and was over crisis marriages. So I have worked with lots and lots of people in crisis. I'm also a sex therapist, so I've worked with a lot of people who have a lot of sexual trauma
Mm.
and just, hard things going on in their lives. So, yeah, great question. How are we
So
all
you've
going to get
helped,
through the next?
yeah. So you've helped people, and those are some of the most difficult situations.
Yeah.
Because your husband Ron and Judy and I and you were all friends. Whenever somebody asks us about you, I say, "Oh yeah, Nancy's our sex therapist." And so, and Judy, invariably, that's when Judy hits me. She goes, "No, she's not." But I mean, those are stressful things, right, in people's
Yeah.
lives.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. Uh, there's a lot of people, trying to just be upbeat, rah, 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 rah. But I think the rah, rah kind of wears off uh, after 2 days, and I've already eaten half of my quarantine food. you know,
Yeah.
Rah, rah leaves. How do I deal with reality, Nancy?
Well, Paul, I'm glad you asked that because honestly, what we really need right now are people who can attune to us. So if I say to you, Paul, I am really stressed out because I am having to change a whole paradigm of my business right now, which I personally am, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just, oh, Nancy, it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. God's going to get you through. Well, that has not hit my target. I need somebody who's going to empathize with me and say, yeah, that's hard.
Mm.
And that's a lot of shifting to do in a few days. And this is stressful, and not minimize our feelings. But, like that's what I love about like David and the Psalms is like he gets his negative
Mm.
feelings up and out. He
Yeah, he did.
expresses them. And, if we don't do our grief work, we end up being bitter, angry, controlling people.
What do you mean
And
by that? What do you
so,
mean? You mean because some things have died, because some things have changed so dramatically? It's almost like a
yeah.
death. Is that what you mean?
Well, Paul, I think when we talk about grief, we all think about like a death.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to be healthy emotionally and spiritually and relationally and psychologically, we have to grieve our small losses and
Mm.
big losses. So this week, all of our worlds have changed. We think twice about even going to the grocery store, like they're saying that not to go see our grandkids right now. Well, that feels like a really big loss for me.
Wow. Yes, it does.
Yeah. And just our regular, ordinary lives have kind of been turned a little bit upside down. And so to just stop, like on Monday, when I was having to cancel all my in-person groups that I do, my in-person meetings, I just realized I need to just sit down and let myself cry for probably about 3 minutes, and then I'll probably be okay. But to make time to do that is so important. Otherwise, we're just angry and bitter, and we go into control mode, and then nobody really wants to be around us,
So,
so we push people away.
so control mode, boy, you've hit it. Maybe part of this, Nancy, as we're looking, we don't know what's going to happen. So in a
Yeah.
sense, we have no control. And if there's one thing we like as North Americans, as any Western cultured person likes, whether we're in France or Peru,
Mhm.
we like control, don't we?
Yes, we are a controlling bunch,
How do I deal with that
and
as a follower of Christ?
So I do think if we let ourselves grieve and then put some people around us who can just tune in to what you're feeling and even say to people, hey, I appreciate right now that you're trying to encourage me. Kind of what I need right now is just maybe that you could validate this, that this is hard for me and that this is scary. For example, yesterday I was on a group Zoom meeting because we're all going to Zoom.
Right.
And the leader of the meeting said, hey, let's all just check in. How's everybody doing? And one of the women got pretty choked up. She said, my mother is in a nursing home and she's got Alzheimer's and she's so confused and scared. And all I could do was look at her from outside of the window and watch her cry on her bed. And she said, and now they're even saying we can't even come to the window. And so we just stopped our meeting and 2 or 3 of us just said, hey, I can see the concern on your face and this is scary. And I am so sorry. Yeah. And I am with you in this. And I think, Paul, I think we need, instead of, you can do all things through Christ. I mean, there's a time for that, but I think first we need to give people some of those relational ingredients that they need.
So that is real community. So now there are most likely, for anybody watching this right now, you probably know someone that you need to call, somebody you need to speak to, somebody you need to say, hey, how are you? I've probably called a dozen people in the last couple of days. Hey, how's your kids? Yeah. Did they get home? All these different things. Are they working from home? So this is really maybe a time where we as the body of Christ can really be community. In other words, somebody who needs not just to, hey, go get them. you're a champion. Go for it. They need, hey, how are you actually? So so we have to go about exactly. We have to go beyond the lobby of the church. We try to be, hey, how are you? But it's usually, hey, how are you? Good. Yeah, me too. Yeah, great. Boom. And then now we actually need to say, how are you? And we need to listen.
Yeah. And I love to ask people, how are you? And then I love to follow it up with, no, how are you really? Like, I really want to know how is the real Paul Cole?
Yeah.
What's this been like for you, Paul? Because I've honestly, Paul, I mean, just a side note, I know how much you travel and I've had moments of feeling concerned for your safety and well-being, so I'm glad to see you at home.
Yeah, it is. Well, I got one of the last flights out of Peru before they closed the nation down. So that was an amazing thing. But, it's like my neighbor, Brett, I was talking to him today at social distance, or what's that called? We were supposed to do?
Yeah.
Social
distance.
So we salute each other. And Brett goes, he said, I've had a dry cough for a week. He said, but I always get one at this time of year where we live. It's flowers are coming out and stuff. So it's like, he goes, man, I had to keep myself from freaking out. How do I deal with the fear issue and the stress it brings? And then the other thing that happens, I get mad. It's like, this is not right.
Yeah, right. Well, Paul, I think for all of us, it's different, but we have to really tune into ourselves. Like I noticed Monday, by the end of the day, I was feeling stressed out. I'm like, okay, what made today different? Well, I'd read more news feeds. I'd turned on the news 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, okay, I cannot do this. Maybe others can have whatever, but for my mental health, I cannot be just feeding myself this and losing my structure and just focused on this crisis. I have to have some balance in my life. So I remember I worked some crisis hotlines during 9/11, just, as a public service. And I would ask people, hey, how much TV are you watching? How many times have you watched the Twin Towers come down?
Yeah.
And they'd say, oh, all day long. And I'm like, please turn off the TV and take your kids to the park.
Wow.
And go for a walk. You cannot do this to yourself. So you know yourself better than anybody, but you've got to monitor how much negativity you can take in, and fear mongering and crisis. And, our minds can only handle so much of that, Paul.
Yeah. The thing is the news media, by and large, newspapers, television, news, all that, was losing viewers like crazy before this happened, to the point where ESPN was, even the sports channels were laying off people. Washington Post got bought and sold. New York Times is laying off people. And so over and over and over, the news media has just been shrinking until the last 7 or 8 days when they could say, we're the only place you can go for news. And it's just become shrill. And the thing we have to remember is they're actually in business to get viewers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So even the way they report something is, it has been ramped up. And we just have to, I think we all need to be smart and be aware, but limit how much negativity you're taking in.
You're a relational expert. And so how do I navigate being around, I heard this funny one the other day, and it was a guy who said, I've been working from home for 2 days, and already my wife has reported me to HR for sexual harassment.
Right?
So good. How do we navigate this? We're going to be really close, a lot more than normal. How do I navigate that? How do I keep my personal space when I don't have any? Help me with this, Nancy, and help us.
I think we have to be aware of our own stress responses. Like, I could tell Monday I was stressed, and so I got a little snippy with my sweet husband. Yeah. And I'm like, and so we've kind of talked about that, like at different points, different days, we're going to be stressed by this. And how can we give each other just some grace and not take that personally?
Wow.
Right. And respect each other's work schedules, even though we're both now working from home. Mm-hmm. And have some respect for each other's routines, and, check in with each other like, hey, how are you doing? What do you need? You seem a little tense. Are you doing okay? How are you doing with all this? But giving grace to each other, because we're all probably going to have some snippy moments during this time, right? Whenever people get stressed, we get a little snippy.
Yeah, I get, I fly a lot and travel a lot. And apparently, according to my wife, there are some snippy moments.
Yeah, so, right.
But she's real good at saying, are you okay? Or, do you need a bowl of cereal or something?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yesterday, I just went for 2 totally random different walks. I was doing business on the phone, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just go outside and take a walk? Wow. There's nothing keeping me in this house. I can go for a walk. And, I thought it was so interesting. I read a study by some professors at Stanford University, and they took 2 different groups of students. And one group of students, they had them stare at the gray science building. And another group of students, they had them stare up at a group of trees, beautiful green, full trees. And then they had a student walk by and drop a box of pencils, kind of in the middle of both these groups. Well, the students who had been staring at the gray science building didn't move to help the student pick up the whole box of pencils that the student had dropped. The students who had been staring up at the sky and the green trees, they all gathered around, helped picked up the pencils.
Wow.
So it just was, the point of the experiment was to say, we've got to give ourselves neurological breaks, and we can
Mm,
do that by going outside in nature. So
mm.
I just want to encourage you all, like, get out, take walks, take breaks, just like you take a coffee break at work, or go to the water cooler and have a few, visit with some of your coworkers. Well, you can't do that right now. Go out and take a walk, call somebody, really, really stay connected. Like some of my girlfriends this morning, we did a Zoom meeting and we just laughed about stupid things. Like, can I go get my hair colored? And we just laughed and laughed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
That was one little meme that Judy saw the other day. She said, "What's going to happen at the end of all this is we're going to find out everybody's real hair color."
I know. It's terrifying.
Okay, you mentioned something about schedule, and a little bit before that, you talked about structure.
Yes.
I think in the midst of chaos like this, it's easy for us to get unstructured. How
Yes.
important is that?
Oh my gosh. We don't know this, but our structure is part of what keeps us all sane.
Wow.
Like we have to put daily structures and routines. Now, for 2 or 3 days, it's great to think, man, this is awesome. I get to work in my PJs all day. But after day 3 or 4, you need to start getting up at the same time, having your usual morning routines, get dressed, put on some makeup, shave, do things so when you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, I look human today. And then make a schedule for yourself and stick to it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
there was a friend of mine, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Carrie Newhoff or Ronnie Doss or one of those guys that the other day said that flannel equals failure.
Right?
If you stay in your
Yes.
pajamas, you are not going to end up being sharp or on top of
No.
it. And it seems like a
No.
cool thing, but those of us who have worked from home for many years, and I've had an office in our home since the late 90s, I guess. We have an office and a studio, but I do a lot of work here. And
Yeah.
I've discovered that I've got to get up at a certain time and I've got to get at it at a certain time. And I have to actually discipline myself. Paul the Apostle said, we discipline ourselves not out of hatred for ourselves, but out of love for what comes out of it.
Yes.
And so all true
Yes.
discipline comes out of love. We know that. The Father loves us, so he disciplines us. We discipline ourselves not to beat ourselves up, but in order for us to be better. And frankly,
Yeah.
those of us who are healthy, let's say, of mind, healthy in our spirit and body, I think we need to be sharper than ever right now, Nancy, in order to be there for people who are going to have a really difficult moment.
Yes.
We have a
Yes.
friend whose wife has Alzheimer's, and he's so concerned because he like you said can't be there, but she can't remember to wash her hands.
No.
She doesn't
Right.
even know what that is, really.
Yeah.
Even though if you talk to her, there's these conversant moments. And I think
Mm-hmm.
about those kinds of things, and I think, that's the guy I need to be strong for.
Mm-hmm.
And if I let myself go, you know what I'm saying? I care more about me than I care about him. It's like the person who needed 180 rolls of toilet paper. If you need
Yeah.
180 rolls of toilet paper to make it through 14 days, you've got a bigger issue than the coronavirus.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Right?
Panic. Toilet
And
paper
what you're
buying. Yes.
really saying is, I'd rather be okay and my neighbors not.
Yeah.
And I think this is a time where we, if you will, who are feeling good and feeling healthy and talking about these things, Nancy, with people like you, I think we owe it to them to be at our best, to get up, do your push-ups, do your exercise. You can't go to the gym? Fine. I went and bought an exercise mat yesterday. I bought some other stuff. And Judy did an online workout. We're going to stay healthy. You know why? Because there's people who can't navigate this.
That's right.
So get out, do things, but keep the structure. Keep that, stay in the Word of God. right?
Yeah.
Keep your
Yeah.
mind renewed. Romans 12:2 says your life is changed by the renewing of your mind, and the renewing of your mind comes through the word of God. My friend Rod Anderson said this. He said, faith comes by hearing, but so does fear. And I think that's the first thing you talked about is what's our intake? What's our intake? Right?
Yeah.
So now
Yes.
I'm navigating this with walks, nature, all of this structure. I think these are all key. If you could give me one thing, you say, hey, don't forget this in the midst of all this. Don't lose sight of this, because we're easily distracted by all this stuff. Or if you got a couple things, what would that be?
Well, Paul, I just want to emphasize something you're saying here, because, whenever we do something kind for somebody else, you get a dopamine hit. Even if you're walking down you're in the airport and somebody drops their ticket and you bend down, pick it up, and hand it to them. Yeah. Your brain gets a dopamine hit.
Wow.
And so there's something about this social responsibility right now that is so huge that I'm not going to go to Costco and buy 1,000 rolls of toilet paper, because then what about my neighbor? You're so right. And so I'm retooling my business right now so I can do everything online. And I'm thinking about my niece who works in New York, and she's an actress and a singer. And so she has no work right now. And I'm like, I want to keep working in case I need to send her some money. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this is kind of how we all know people who are hourly workers who are going to be out of work. And we need to be thinking way beyond ourselves that, and how am I going to get through this? Your brain is going to be happier if you are thinking about, I need to be smart, I need to plan, but how can I think about others right now? And like you said, calling people, reaching out, checking in, because this causes hardships for different people in different ways. And so I think the first thing we can do is attune to others and be grace-filled and compassionate and kind and merciful and grace-filled towards others. And that's huge. I think that's going to keep us all, help us all be the healthiest and come out of this better.
I love that whole thing. It's like kick up your dopamine hit. Get a dopamine hit.
Yeah, right?
Help somebody.
Makes us, they're God's happy drugs. Why not utilize them and do good things for others, Well,
you got the dopamine hit when you help somebody, and then you get the next level, which is oxytocin, when you do something with a group of people, helping some people. Right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That bonding hormone.
Yeah, the bonding. So I call it the compadre chemical.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just a few things that I think are important is you need people who can tune into you. You need people who can give you hope. And I don't mean, that false hope or cheerleading, but hey, Paul, I believe you're resilient, and I know this is super hard, but I also want you to know that I'm here for you and you're not alone in this. Yeah. And that feels encouraging, right? That's what I mean by encouragement.
Right.
And then perspective, keep your perspective healthy. America, the world has gone through atomic bombs. We've gone through swine flu, Spanish flu. We've gone through all kinds of things. And God is good, and he gets us through, and there's things for us to learn in this process. And then just reality, that you're going to have moments where you're stressed out and you're cranky, and your spouses and your kids are going to get a little whiny, and people can get scared, and where we just practice having more grace for ourselves and others and kind of go, this causes uncertainty, and people are feeling off balance, and how can I just walk through this day with grace and love? And then practice having structure. Structure is good for us. Paul, years ago they did some research on kids on a playground. And if the playground, big piece of property, right? And if the playground did not have a fence around it, then the kids would stay huddled in the middle. But
Wow.
if there's a fence around it, the kids would play to the boundaries of the playground. Because if we have boundaries and structure in our lives, we feel safe, and then we can explore our options. If we don't have structure and boundaries, we get scared and we start closing down and we huddle and we want to stand, put the covers over our head and be like Chicken Little and say the world is caving in, you know?
So my children, if I'm a parent, I've got young children at home. It's going to be healthier if I give them structure rather than just say, hey guys, you're home, whatever you want to do. If I give them structure, they're actually going to feel safer.
They will feel so much safer if you say, okay, kiddos, we're getting up now, and then we're going to get dressed. We're going to have breakfast.
Yeah.
We're going to, yes. And you have their days planned for them, just like if they were going to school or anywhere else. So the more structure we can give ourselves, our children, our loved ones, even our friends, like, hey, how's your routine doing? Have you thought about getting back into some sort of new rhythm? That'll help us all feel safer.
I was at a grocery store yesterday morning, and there was a young lady that was bagging my groceries, and she was running back and forth between 3 different outlets, or whatever they call them, check stands. And I said, I turned to her and I said, well, how are you doing, Liz? She said, man, I've worked 50 hours in the last 3.5 days. No, it was in the last 4 days. I said, 50 hours. I said, well, how are you doing? She goes, well, first of all, she says, I'm really going to be happy with my paycheck. And secondly, this has not been easy. I said, well, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here doing this and how much it means to me and to all these people. She said, well, thank you. Mm-hmm. And you know what I've found? Almost every place I've been is people are like that. There's a sense of, okay, we're all in this together right now. It's sort of like, it's like Independence Day, the movie, when the aliens come. And all of a sudden, everybody who was against each other has to pull together.
Yes.
Right? It's us against the aliens. Well, this is an alien, the coronavirus.
Yeah, it is. It is an alien.
Yeah. So for people like that, if we have those kind of words and those kinds of things, that's going to help that person, that health provider. We say, hey, everybody work from home, but you can't do that if you're making the electricity happen. And if you're keeping the water running and, just the little things we go, hey, everybody stay home except you and except you and except you. And the fact is there are people that need to be out, and those who can stay home will, as we all know, flatten the curve, which I believe in. I think it's really smart. But I want to make sure I'm grace-filled. So thank you for that word. I want to make sure that I have grace towards them at all times.
Well, I appreciate you reminding us to thank the people who are out there every day. And they don't have the privilege of staying home. So thank you for that reminder, Paul. Yeah.
Well, Nancy, thank you for all this stuff. I've written down 3 pages of the things. And when I write my book on overcoming stress, I'll put it at the very end, as Nancy always says. So, it'll be awesome. It'll be a bestseller, and we'll take you and Ron out for a bite of dinner or something.
That sounds perfect, Betty.
Anyway, thank you for what you do and the people you're helping, and the fact that over the last 20, 25 years, well, you have 20 years in practice, but 10 years to get to that point, 10, 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
And so thank you for all the hard work that put you in a place to be able to share so practically what we need to do. So thank you, Nancy. God bless you and everything you do.
You're welcome, Paul. My joy. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you.
Okay.